And welcome back to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. Matt will be back on Monday. This is Matt Crow. Dave, we've got Chad Seay, Commissioner Chad Seay on the line to let's get his reaction. Commissioner, when you woke up this morning and heard the news, what was your first reaction to the president being diagnosed with COVID?
Well, first of all, good morning, Matt. Good morning, Dave.
Morning.
As far as my reaction, I mean, I know several people that are up in age that have had the virus, and one of them took it kind of rough, but survived over it. And I have friends right now that have it that are up in age, and they're doing fine. Everyone has recovered except for one that I know personally, and he's on his way to get better as well. So I'm not too concerned about it. I mean, he probably has the best physicians that you can have out there, so I think he'll be just fine in about 14 days.
Tell us, the emergency declarations were lifted at the last county commissioner's court. I believe that's what the judge told us.
Correct.
So no more emergency declarations right now.
Well, it was doing us absolutely no good because we're under the direction of the governor anyway, and all that does just start more hype that we think this virus is something that is an emergency. When we do a disaster declaration, it's only supposed to be for a short amount of time until we get things under control. Now, most of the time that would be around here for a tornado or something like that did a lot of destruction. You have a disaster declaration, that way you could actually have curfews and stuff. That way we don't have looting and things. But that'd be for a very short period. This thing has gone on since March, and it does us absolutely no good to sit there and talk about re-upping this declaration. So we decided not to do that again.
What's your view on the budget this year and the taxes? I know you last go around, you and Corley walked out of there, and we went one direction. This time around, you didn't. Give us your reasoning for that.
Well, last time I was not as familiar with the budget as I am, and I didn't see things going well at all, so we decided to walk out to make it effectively freezing or going back to the effective rate, the no new revenue rate, and it gave the other people on the court no chance to even vote on this. This time, I've had it in my mind that anytime I don't get my way, I can't just run out stomping. I mean, I have to stand my ground and actually vote. I caught a lot of criticism for the first time I walked out that my job was to be there and vote for my constituents. That doesn't mean I won't ever walk out again. If I see things are not on the up and up, I will definitely walk out to do the same thing. But I can't do it every time, and I won't do it every time. That would be holding the county commissioner's court hostage every time we got into a budget session. So why even have a budget session?
You can't win, can you? You get flack if you walk out, and you get flack if you stay in.
I didn't do this to make friends. I did this to do a good job for the county.
Boy, did you come to the right place. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult job,
and I'm good with that decision. I know Robert Pratt, he beat me up a little bit. We talked at the debate the other night. I explained why I did what I did. He still wasn't happy about it, but we left cordial with each other. Put it that way. I respect his views just as much as I respect anybody else's views.
Are you generally happy with the direction the commissioner's court has taken while you've been there?
Yes and no. There's a lot of stuff that still is in the weeds that we keep finding out every day. I won't go into it because I don't want to play my cards too fast. I don't want people to go hide what I know. So I'll get everything together and I'll confront them. We did have a massive change in Road and Bridge. We didn't have good leadership. Things were being done out of order, and I hate to say it, we got great guys up there. We just didn't have real good leadership. So we made a top-to-bottom change in that. Hopefully it's going to work for the best, because if our road and bridge aren't up to par schedule-wise with our road bonds, we could really make a mess of this $99.5 million bond we have. So we have to stay on schedule. We got a lady in there that she is mindful of that schedule, because if we mess it up, it's going to come back on the county. So we cannot mess up this road bond.
You're going to have one new face and maybe two new faces, correct?
Correct.
After the election. Have you been in contact with any of the the candidates? I mean, I don't want you to, you don't have to divulge any, private conversations, but what they can.
With Terrence Kovar, I've met him a couple of times. We haven't gone into great discussion about anything. I know he's met with the judge several times, and he's met with Bill McKay several times. So I haven't had a lot of contact with him. Of course, my office is right next to Gilbert's office, so we talk. Kerry Shaw, he's running against Gilbert Flores, and he's been very vocal. He's met with me several times.
And I suppose that, since you're a sitting commissioner, you take the time to kind of share your experiences, your outlooks. But it seems to me both Kerry and Terrence are their own people. They're going to bring their own thoughts to it.
Yes.
And if they are elected, I'm sure you'll all sit down together and kind of chat about the direction of where the county's going. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, there's been a considerable amount of press given to the Planned Parenthood coming back to the city of Lubbock and kind of drawing a line here between the city and the county. But as of a few days ago, New Home was the latest city to join this movement to outlaw abortion within the city limits, and with some exceptions. But it really hasn't been a county issue. But what are your thoughts on that as far as Planned Parenthood coming back to the city of Lubbock, and B, these ordinances that have been suggested by State Rep Burrows and Frullo and State Senator Perry?
Well, I'm on board with John Frullo and Dustin Burrows and Senator Perry. I've already signed several petitions. I actually live in the city of Lubbock, so I actually got to sign the petition for the city to be a sanctuary city and not let Planned Parenthood come in.
Is that something that the county would ever entertain, or do you see that as redundant with regards to if Lubbock does the city of Lubbock adopts those ordinances, there doesn't need to be any action by the county?
I'd have to speak with the other county commissioners about it. If it came up there, I know what my vote will be. I can say that.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of not allowing them into our county.
Dave,
I think they do.
Go ahead. I was going to say, Dave, did you want to ask Chad a few questions?
Well, I'd like to know in general, Chad, how you think things are going down there. What are the biggest issues that you guys face coming up?
The biggest issue that we're looking at right now, our jail population hovers just below 1,300, and we've had a huge increase in our female population, which we only have one pod for females. So we haven't done a study about how our court system and our jail system works to kind of keep it more streamlined. So we're doing that through this next fiscal year, and it's going to tell us at what time would we actually need to think about building a new pod, because that's something that's very scary. A new pod could run upwards of $40 million, and that is a huge number. And I don't want to tackle that bear unless I absolutely have to. So we've hired a firm that did ours right before we built our jail 20 years ago, and they're doing that again. And they may come back and say, well, our courts are too slow, or we're not getting our prisoners to the state level fast enough. I don't know. I'm going to depend on their expertise to tell us what we need to do.
All right, I'm sorry, guys. We got to go to a break. I hate to interrupt you all, but we've got to go to a break. And when we come back, let's keep, if you can, Chad, stay on for another segment. And Dave, you can get your questions in. You're listening to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. We'll be right back. Dave King and I are talking to Lubbock County Commissioner Chad Seay. And Dave, I cut you off there because we had to go to the break. Reapproach the bench and go ahead.
Well, because I was asking I was asking Chad Seay what he thought were the biggest issues that's coming up. You had mentioned that the jail population of women had exploded. What on earth has caused that? Any ideas?
Well, to my understanding, when we first built the jail we have now, 20 years ago, they did this same thing. And it was like, if I'm not mistaken, and don't hold these numbers to be true, I think it was 17% of our population was women. And now we've approached nearly 25%. So we've got a lot more women than we had in the past. And I can't tell you why. The sheriff would be someone to ask that would know better about that. But our ratio of women to men is actually growing. We have multiple men's pods, but we have one women's pod.
And you said
Wow.
it costs $40 million for a pod?
Well, you have to take that's not just the cost of the building itself. You have to staff it.
Holy cow, that's a lot of money.
And that's one of the things that kind of caught them when they built the first jail. They built the jail, and we got to staff it. So that kind of caught them a little off guard. That's what the sheriff has explained to me. I won't let that. If we have to build something, we're going to plan it, staff it, and everything, because you need to know the end dollar number, not, hey, this is the building. Well, if you don't staff it, what's good is the building.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of breaking news here. I've got Commissioner Corley just arrived in the studio. I guess he thought you were just completely out of control, Chad, and raced over here in his truck.
Me in line. Morning, Jason.
Morning, Chad. How are you doing? No,
I
that's
did.
the other half
my
of
guys this morning.
Yes,
Sitting
sir.
outside the shop.
That's my next stop.
We're talking with Chad Seay and Dave King, of course, and Commissioner Corley just joined us, talking about the cost of a jail pod. $40 million. Is that something you all are going to entertain down the road?
Well, it's
not unless we have to.
It's more of a we don't have a choice. One of the things I've had when I talk to people about this and we catch some criticism for it, it's, well, I don't want to pay for a bigger jail. Like, well, okay, well, where do you want the sheriff to lock people up? I mean, what do you want to do? And we can't exactly just put tents out there. It doesn't, you can get away with that in Arizona. Texas, our jail standards are a little stiffer than that.
This is a hard question to answer, but do you think most people in the county would pay a few extra dollars to build a larger jail?
Depends who you ask. Yeah, I think a lot of people would if they understand that the need's there. When the jail was first, the current jail that we're in now, when it was built, it passed with over 80% voter approval. You just got to make sure that your voter understands what you're spending the money on. It has to be something worth spending it on. And I'm not a big fan of dog parks and bicycle lanes and things like that. But jail, yeah, that's a function of government, especially county government. What we need to do.
I gotta jump in here. This just amazes me. I don't know how old that jail is, but it's relatively new, and it's huge. And I remember that shortly after it was built, they were bemoaning the fact of how empty.
How empty it was, I think is what Dave was saying.
Well, population growth has contributed to
somehow
that.
Didn't materialize, and so we had an empty jail, and now the jail is full. I understand Lubbock is growing, but this is just amazing. How did this all happen?
Population growth. Also, Dave, when you're talking about that, everybody was surprised by how empty the jail was. At the time of the construction of the jail, let's be honest, prison system is an industry. There was a lot of need for jail space that was out there that there just wasn't any place to go with those. So the feds were paying a lot of money to house prisoners just because they couldn't find a place to go. Well, people started building jails left and right. I think we've got one up in Littlefield and a private prison up there that they've been struggling to find some sort of use for that. Well, now that there's a lot more jails, that dollar amount has gone down to keep these federal inmates. So, that's why there was a lot of jails built at that time. That's why there was all the vacancies at the jail at the time. But I can tell you one thing. I can make you one good suggestion for if you don't want to spend more money on a jail, then you need to get out there. You need to find somebody who is at risk, for winding up in our jail and work with them, help them. I mean, look how many churches we've got in this community.
We're going to go to a quick break because I want to have a little longer chat with Chad and Jason here. So hang with us. We've got Corley in the studio. We've got Chad Seay on the phone. Of course, Dave King. We'll be right back after this. Back on KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. I'm Matt Crow. In the studio, we have County Commissioner Jason Corley, and on the phone, County Commissioner Chad Seay, and, of course, Dave King. And I've got a few texts I want to set this next segment up with. Does the city contribute anything to the jail financially?
No.
It doesn't. Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Chad, I don't even think we charge them for anything, do we?
No, because once they're brought in, even if they're city, they're still part of the county. The county oversees what the cities do around here. They come to our county jail, and they're our responsibility and under our jurisdiction.
Okay, let me frame this next segment in terms of public safety. First question for the both of the commissioners. Kelly Rowe, just his staff and his operation just received how much more money this year?
$2.5 million.
And Chad, were you happy with that amount?
Yes.
Okay. As far as the fire department's concerned, fire services and so forth, how do we sit right now with all that? Are we up to speed? Are we up to our quota? I mean, are we fully staffed?
So here's the thing: on our volunteer fire departments, we've got 11 volunteer fire departments here in Lubbock County, and Lubbock County has not reassessed what we're paying per call with our fire department since 2011. Back then, it was set up at $450 per call. $450 sounds like a lot of money, but when you stop and look at what a fire truck costs, it's really not the case. So we've added an additional $500,000 to their budget by buying them. We bought every department 4 air packs and 5 sets of bunker gear.
Good. Well, listen, I want to thank both the commissioners for. Go ahead, Chad, real quick.
And that's not enough. If we're trying to get them on a 5-year plan, within the 5 years, we replaced all their bunker gear and all their SCBAs. That's our goal.
Thank you so much, Chad Seay. Jason Corley. We'll be back after the top of the hour with Scott Braddock. Welcome back to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. I'm Matt Crow. I'll be sitting in one more segment for Matt Martin. He'll be back on Monday, and hopefully he'll be in fine spirits. We've got Jason Corley, Commissioner Jason Corley, in the studio with us this morning. Scott Braddock was going to be on. Scott had some technical difficulties, and unfortunately, Scott won't be able to join us, but he'll be back next week. And I'm sure he wanted to talk about Governor Abbott with the ballot box ruling that the governor has put on. And Commissioner Corley, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but evidently the governor has put out an edict that says there's only going to be one ballot box drop-off, not polling station, but mail-in ballot or drop-off for every county. So there's 254 counties, and that box will be watched by representatives from the Republican Party in the county and representatives from the Democrat Party in the county. What's your take on all this hoo-ha over mail-in ballots? And any concern to you?
Oh, I think mail-in ballots is a great way to commit fraud. That's what I look at with him. Him going to a single box, I mean, you're always going to be walking a fine line between convenience for your voter to get out and vote and voters and security of the election too. So going to one box, there's only one place that you can drop that thing off. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think if you really want to do it, but how many in Lubbock County? How many polling places are you going to drive past? I mean, seriously, I mean, you can vote at every grocery store in this town. Joining us in the studio as well is Steve Evans, and Steve, of course, was the current or former chairman of the Republican Party here in Lubbock.
Has been just and, has been.
How soon they forget, right? Anyway, what's your take on the ballot box edict that Abbott just launched?
Well, I do agree with the idea that mail-in ballots is one of the greatest ways to commit fraud. What are the watchers of the ballot box? And I'm gonna coming up on the Chad Hasty show, we're gonna talk about this some more. But what are the watchers of the ballot box going to do? Are they going to ID you and make sure that what you're dropping in the box is your mail-in ballot? I mean, what is the task here? Make sure there's only one envelope in your hand so you don't sneak another one in. I don't quite understand the idea of, I love it if they're going to have a Democrat there, we get to have a Republican there. I like the idea of having balanced watchers, but I don't know that the election code provides for mail-in ballot watchers necessarily. I don't know where that's at. I'll have to look at that.
Commissioner Corley, you ran for the United States Congress in a primary. You ran for county commissioner. Did you ever worry about ballot fraud? I mean, was that something that entered into your mind during campaigns, or was you just took it for granted it was going to be?
No, I was running in Republican primaries. We typically don't do that. But if I was running, in a general, well, okay, I guess I did run through a general for the commissioner's race. But I think it's interesting. Some places you see a lot of it down in the valley. You don't really see so much here. But one of the things that really prevents that is getting your counties to, your election workers to go through there. I know Dorothy does a great job of this. They've got to go through there and cull out the voting list each year to make sure that those registered voters are still in Lubbock County. Because if you think about it, if you you could be registered to vote in Lubbock County, move to Lynn County, register to vote down there, move over to Floyd County in the same year and register to vote there. And it might be, it might be a year before somebody catches that and discovers that, hey, wait a minute, you're registered in 3 different places and you don't actually live here.
Yeah.
So in a presidential election, or a congressional race, state chair, Senate race, you could go around to those 3 counties and vote 3 different times.
Steve, what are the important dates coming up with the voting as far as being able to vote, registering to vote, that type of thing?
This is why I'm a has-been. I mean, I don't have those dates. No, October 5th, last day to register to vote for the November election. And if you get registered by October 5th, you can vote in early voting starting October 13th.
Yeah.
So you can do that quick.
And that's an extended early voting.
It's an extended early voting, and it's been the subject of much controversy. Of course, Republican Party State Chairman Alan West joining in a petition for a writ of mandamus against the governor for essentially what they believe is more overreach and overstepping election law by extending that early vote. Great big debate going on within the party. But when we talk about election fraud, I can honestly tell you that I was absolutely naive to it. And a couple of years ago, we had President Trump's election fraud attorney, Trey Traynor, came into Lubbock. We did some attorney training for them to be on the hotline during Election Day and also to train poll watchers. And I got to sit down one-on-one, and he enlightened me greatly. I walked out frightened, really, that election fraud was that easy, that systems, according to him, are hackable. Computers are hackable.
Wasn't there a big controversy, though, a couple of years ago over buying new machinery, new polling equipment? Was there some controversy over that? Was everything replaced just recently? I get the whole ID thing and making sure you're registered to vote where you're registered to vote, but people are fallible, machines are fallible. What can we do to make sure that there's no fraud? Because it seems to me like anything else, if there's a way to tamper with it or there's a way to defraud, it happens all the time.
Well, we did in Lubbock County spend $6 million, and I was very, very critical of the decision to do that, to upgrade our voting machines. But the software is very, very similar, essentially the same vendor. It took us from the little wheel that you voted with to a touchscreen was the only feature that I actually saw upgraded. However, except for on the equipment, many of the external ports that might be used to plug in a USB drive or something that could access a computer or a machine are now sealed. So there is another measure of security in, I believe it's Hart is our vendor that runs the software. There is an extra measure of security in the voting machine. So whether it was worth $6 million or not, I don't know. We were talking about needing some fire equipment, and we've got voting machines that could very well be obsolete in a couple of election cycles, and I could have built a lot of Scott Air Packs with $6 million.
There's a lot of truth to that. That was one of the things that came up the last time that the state was in session. That I forget which rep it was that put forth a bill that it's go back to a paper ballot to require everyone to go back to that. Haven't seen that going. I don't know. I don't know that I disagree with it, but when my question was, okay, I've got 6.2 million reasons not to like this idea, as Lubbock County Commissioner. So I'd get them on the phone and said, hey, that's great. I appreciate what you guys are trying to do for the process. But, so I've got these expensive voting machines, and I've got about 10 more years of use
I'm
on
all
these
for
things.
bringing back the hanging Chad.
Well, it seems to me, though, if I was king, my personal opinion, I want to know how you guys feel, I would eliminate mail-in ballots altogether, except for members of the military.
I would too.
I just don't think there's a need to, and the people who have problems getting to the polling places can call their party headquarters and get a ride. I've offered myself to my precinct, in my precinct, which is precinct 10 in Lubbock. I call the perfect 10. They know me, I know them, and if they have problems getting to the polls, I'll go get them and take them to the polls. We've got 2 weeks to do it now.
We have forever. The last election cycle, I even went so far as talk to a local charter bus company. We were going to take a whole nursing home to the polls because they were worried that we don't have the mobile voting. The new legislation took the mobile voting, which is it was the temporary station that we could move around and get near nursing homes.
Of course, that ignores the COVID issue, and a lot of people would say, I don't want to get around other people when I vote, and so on and so forth. So that needs to be addressed as well.
But we've got a very Dorothy Kennedy in the elections office, and I got one of the last votes I got to take on my way out. We set up a very good drive-through voting system downtown at Crickett's Avenue, where you're going to be able to drive up.
I've seen that in action. It's pretty cool.
Voting, and it's it's going to be even better for this election.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more with Commissioner Corley and has been Steve Evans. That he self-describes himself as that. You're listening to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. Welcome back to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. In the studio with me, I've got former Lubbock County Chairman Steve Evans and current Lubbock County Commissioner Jason Corley. We're talking about the validity of elections and election fraud. We're talking about mail-in ballots. Texter wrote in, if I can drive 112 miles each way to work so the welfare jockeys can sit at home and smoke pot all day, then anyone can drive a few miles to the ballot box. Amen.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, yay.
Don't disagree.
Drum roll. I mean, that's fantastic.
What do you guys see? I'm springing this on you right now, but looking ahead, let's look ahead 20 years. What are elections going to look like? Are we still going to be having to go to Market Street and stand in line and spin the little touch the pads and so forth? Or are we going to evolve to a system where we do it by a phone, or we do it over the internet, or we do it with a thumb and an ink pad? I mean, is this going to move forward to a? I mean, because if we're depositing money and transferring funds around our respective banks online, why can't we vote online?
How do they do in Russia?
They do that in Russia.
I don't know. However they vote in Russia, I'm not
pushing it. I'm not pushing online voting. I'm just saying, why if we're moving millions of dollars around every minute in this country on the internet, why can't we vote on the internet?
We have so many unique identifiers on our body, and I don't want to get in the whole mark of the beast and an implanted chip, because you simply don't need it. You've got
that's exactly
retinal
where
scans.
I was about to
You've
go.
got it's a scary thing. You've got retinal scans. You've got thumbprints, but it's the whole voter ID issue. The whole battle against the Republicans and the Democrats is, I shouldn't have to ID myself. I should simply get to vote because I showed up and I'm a human being in the United States. I shouldn't have to prove anything. I should just simply get to vote. And, I'm actually a proponent of it's even Republicans want to shoot me for this. I want the voter rolls to expire every 2 years. I want you to go have to re-register.
Like a driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every two, I could settle for 4 years, one gubernatorial cycle, and then your voter registration burns to the ground. The rolls are completely destroyed. They're nothing but a memory, and you go back down and you re-register to vote. Driving to the ballot box, to the texter's credit, how hard is it to drive down to Crickett's Avenue or find a voter registrar and register to vote? It's just not that hard. Mm-hmm.
But the Democrats would make it out to be difficult.
Oh, it's so hard.
And that you're suppressing the vote by insisting they do that.
You're disenfranchising us. That's, of course they will. And, to Lubbock County's credit, because we have an elections office, we have staff that is diligent about trying to maintain the accuracy of those voter rolls. When you have smaller counties that just have a county clerk that manages them, they don't have the staff to make sure they're accurate. So what Jason was, I almost called you Chad. Sorry, there
Close enough.
Has been commissioner. What happens is what Jason was talking about, they just don't have the time. It can take a year, 2 years sometimes, even if someone dies, to get scrubbed off the voter rolls. So that's where we get the most of the fraud that happens is in the rural counties that can't keep that list current.
Well, and you hope you got somebody really diligent down there for a county secretary or someone like that that's willing to really go through there. I know in Lynn County, I believe it was a tax assessor collector that was going through it, because I'd stopped by there. State had approved some new software that they'd sent out, but the data was old. So she was sitting there culling through this thing, 5,000 people in the county, and she's like, "Nope, I went to your funeral. No, I know you moved. Your kid don't live there anymore." And she knew a lot of these people personally, but then she went through there and had to completely scrub this thing, and then called a lot of people to make sure that they were registered who had been moved in, because this was over just software. So, was there any voter fraud there at the time? No. Was the potential there? Certainly. And great to see somebody in a small county that's working hard to prevent that.
I would be in favor of legislation that would allow deputy voter registrars, because they've taken a blood oath to protect to be nonpartisan in their duties to register voters. I would be in favor of legislation that would let the counties assemble a committee of party people, so a couple Republicans, a couple of Democrats on a committee that they could task with reviewing those voter rolls. It's something that the parties could do in the off season when a lot of times the election's over and you say, well, now what do you county parties do? Well, now we just kind of sit and wait, and we go clean up our mess from, we clean up our mess. The Democrats don't always do. Go clean up our mess from the elections, and now we've got, just kind of hang out and hope we stay together and eat some food and have some socials. But if we could appoint some committees that were balanced, Democrat and Republican, that could be assigned by those chairs and allow us to come in and review and make the calls of the voter rolls, I would love to see that legislation happen where that was something that the Commissioners Court could vote on and task the local parties to do.
Seems like every election year, every major election year, this comes up. And I just don't see an end to it unless there's some serious attention paid to it. It took 9/11 to change how you get a driver's license, finally. You had to have a passport or a birth certificate and what have you. And I think I think Steve's right. We need to look at the whole process over again. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Dave King and Matt Martin. I'm Matt Crow. Matt Martin will be back in on Monday, and Chad Hasty is not going to be here today. It's going to be Steve Evans. Steve has got Chad locked in his trunk out in the parking lot, so Steve's going to talk about what's happened to the president.
It's a day of has-beens.
Have a great weekend, and you can monitor all the news about COVID and the president on KFYO over the weekend.